Sister, don't move. The alarm clock rang, and I was about to press it, when I reached out and touched a man. For a moment, I fell asleep, and rushed to the heavenly spirit cover. I made sure it was my family. So where did this man come from? I got up and stared at the strange man next to me, the voice that came from his mouth. We both stared at each other. He looked at me with his hands lazily on his head and raised eyebrows. Sister, it's still early. He hooked his lips, his long eyelashes fluttering as he spoke, spilling a little smile. Me. I wrapped my quilt tightly and moved to the side. I vaguely remembered something. You. Is it my brother's student? I looked at him and asked tentatively. My brother is a graduate tutor, and I brought back a student last night, and I need to live at home for a while to do an important project with him. I was too drunk at the time, so I didn't take it seriously, and went back to my room and fell asleep. Wake up thirsty in the middle of the night. The rest of the story is a matter of course. Sister remembered me. His voice is clear, and when the tail note rises slightly, it always has a bit of seduction. I panicked. The younger brother seems to be dangerous. I didn't look carefully last night, but my little brother is quite handsome, with delicate and three-dimensional facial features, fair and clean skin, which suits my taste. I was a little distracted. Turning his head, he met his eyes, that seemed to be smiling. I quickly looked away and faked a cough to hide my guilt. Well, last night's incident was an accident, I explained. I still don't understand why I went wrong. Sister, he called me in a low voice. The voice is pitiful and aggrieved. You broke into my room last night. He's blaming me. I looked up at him disapprovingly. He was staring at me, his long narrow eyes under his tails, and his clear eyes glowing with water. It's like an abandoned puppy. My heart skipped a beat. I'm sorry. My conscience found out, and I bowed my head in shame and apologized. Sister, is this turning your face, and not recognizing anyone? What does he mean? Do you want to hold me accountable? It's certainly impossible to be responsible. I put on an attitude. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door outside, followed by my brother's familiar loud voice. Benson Penn. Shu is a thief with a weak heart. Hearing my brother's voice, my scalp went numb and I even forgot that this wasn't my room. His face was flustered. My hands were quicker than my brains, so I rushed over and covered my brother's mouth, glaring at him frantically. Please, please, don't make a sound. I begged him, and my frightened voice trembled. My brother's big innocent eyes widened, and I read the puzzle in his eyes, and helpless. I didn't have the time to deal with him, and my hair stood on end. Keep an eye on the door. I was dumbfounded. Last night, I came in without locking the door. Benson Penn, aren't you awake yet? My brother is outside the door and hasn't left yet. He's not going to just open the door and come in. My brother was taken away by Benson Penn. Excuse, not feeling well. It wasn't until the footsteps completely disappeared that my tense nerves dared to relax. Sister, are you afraid of your brother? He's laughing at me. I glared at him, and it was only after staring at him that I realized something was wrong. Why did you get caught up in his arms? I struggled to my feet. He grinned wickedly and tightened me tighter. I'm a little. You let go of me. Let go. He didn't listen, and chuckled and tapped the tip of my nose. Who am I looking for to be responsible for my sister running away? Good guy, is this up to me? I didn't struggle anymore and felt that I should reason with him. Benson Penn, right? I straightened up and took out my sister's posture. Adult matters should be solved in the way of adults, and it will be boring for you to entangle like this. Will my sister be in charge? Can't get over this stubble? I quickly glanced at him. I don't have missing arms or legs. What's the responsibility? It took a lot of talking, but I can be regarded as getting the little brother. I'm afraid my brother will come and knock on the door again. I slipped out of bed and was about to leave. Behind him, Benson Penn suddenly snorted. You. What's wrong with you? Benson Penn's face turned pale. I'm a little overwhelmed. He curled his lips with difficulty, not feeling well. It took me a long time to react. That's so what to do. Why don't I take you to the hospital? I spoke tentatively. He probably felt a lot of pain and nodded. Dressed haphazardly, I helped him out of the room. My guest room is facing the living room. For a moment, we all forgot that there was a third person in the house. My brother, his mentor, came out of the kitchen with an apron and a basin of noodles. What are you doing? My brother's face changed when he saw me holding his hand. Frightened, I quickly threw him away. Ever since I was a child, I was afraid of my brother. How dare I lie in front of him? That's it. He's hurt. I blushed and said this. You can't tell the truth, can you? Then my brother is not allowed to send me to hell. I took Benson Penn to the hospital. Go in yourself. I pushed him. Benson Penn was like a boneless cat, crushing me so hard that I couldn't pull it out a few times. Had to stand awkwardly in the doorway. Sister, is this shy? Benson Penn raised an eyebrow playfully, calmly as if nothing had happened, and in the mood to make fun of me. This makes me seem weak, okay? Why am I shy? I'm afraid you'll be shy. There's nothing wrong with me, it's just that I have a hard mouth, I can't be provoked, and I will be provoked. I regretted it when I said that. After all, the yellow flower girl, how have you ever seen such a scene? Benson Penn stared at me meaningfully, and didn't speak. I'm very weak-hearted. I was about to say something, and find myself a step down. Benson Penn smirked as he pulled the hand on my shoulder, and dragged me in with my head. Me. Just kidding. Why don't you take it seriously? The doctor was examining Benson Penn, and I stood by and looked ashamed. Vaguely, I was keenly aware that the doctor was always looking at me. It's not a big problem, go back and rest more, don't exercise. I'm sure not, it's my delusion. The doctor looked at me again, and there was still a little bit of desire in his eyes. When I got back in the car, I asked Benson Penn, why did you come all the way to this hospital to see a doctor? Is their family famous for that? Benson Penn sat in the passenger seat, the corners of his mouth curled, and he squinted at me. Do you think that the doctor just now is very strange? It's you who has the problem? Why does he keep looking at me? He probably thinks you're fit to be his daughter-in-law. I got home and looked around, but fortunately my brother hadn't come back in the morning after being called away from school. I'll help you to bed for a while. Benson Penn's face was much better than before. I poured him a glass of water. I was going to go out, but after thinking about it, I retreated. Well, when is your project with my brother going to work? After that incident, although I didn't care about it, people dangled under my nose every day, which made me a little uncomfortable. I've thought it all through. If he can't leave for a while, I'll go to my girlfriend's house for a while. Benson Penn didn't speak, his eyes staring straight at me. In order to hide my panic, I picked up the cup and drank a sip of water to suppress my shock. I haven't swallowed a mouthful of water. Benson Penn's words nearly choked me to death. My cup. I'm petrified. Ahem. I'm sorry. I'll pour you another drink right away. I blushed, apologized, and went outside to pour him a glass of water. I've changed the cup, you can drink it with confidence. I deliberately warned. Benson Penn looked at me with a playful look. With a chuckle, he took the cup from my hand, his fingers running over my fingertips, intentionally or unintentionally, stirring up a burst of tingling. What is he doing? My pupils dilated, and I reflexively withdrew my hand, looking up and glaring at him warily. What are you doing? He smiled brightly. I like to share a cup with my sister. I'm not old, but I know a lot. I snorted. The mood is very complicated, a little happy, and a little scared. Benson Penn's face suddenly came to me, and his deep eyes seemed to crash into my heart. Does that sister like it? I almost got upset, and reached out to push his face away from me. Talk. What are you doing so close? He was so aggressive that I couldn't resist it at all. Benson Penn was thick enough to push him away. When he got right, he took my hand, and with a little force I fell into his arms. Sister, are you still going to drive me away? I kind of got it. Coming overtly or covertly, I'm no match for Benson Penn. So, I made a decision, packed up overnight and went to my girlfriend's house. A second before I was ready to go out, my brother returned. Was taken to the study by him and explained seriously, I'm going on a business trip to another province for 2 days. Benson Penn is not feeling well, you can take care of him at home. Also, you'd better be honest with me, and don't hit Benson Penn's idea. My eyebrows jumped and I looked at my brother secretly. As a result, he knocked on the door. Look at what I'm doing. Do you hear me? I was pitiful. It hurts, I know. My brother explained a few words to Benson Penn and hurried away. The door slammed. I threw my head upside down on the couch and asked the sky speechlessly, is my brother reassuring me or reassuring? To be honest, I wanted to run, but because my brother's obscenity was still there, I had to obediently go into the kitchen to cook. Benson Penn, help! My terrible roar shook the sky. Trembling and clutching the doorframe, as if there was some flood beast in the pool, Benson Penn trotted over, and I could see nervousness in his eyes. He asked me, what's wrong? Are you hurt? I'm like a child who has been wronged and begged for a hug. Fish moving. The fish in the pool jumped again, and I screamed and jumped on top of Benson Penn, pouting like a quail and burying my head in his heart. My brother is so bad that he doesn't know that I haven't cooked. He also bought fish. Do you think he wants to kill me, and be an only child? I'm still suing my brother. Benson Penn amusedly put his hand on top of my head and rubbed it. I'm here, I'm not afraid. His voice is magnetic and nice. It's the kind that makes people get intoxicated. I realized my gaffe in hindsight. You let me down. Benson Penn must have done it on purpose, and I could feel his hand dragging my body tightening. Aren't you afraid? I'm afraid. But I won't admit it. I moved my ass uncomfortably in his arms. I wasn't afraid, but I wasn't mentally prepared and was taken aback. I pouted, pretending to be calm. Oh, Benson Penn's tail note dragged the floor. I don't know if he believes it or not, but I do. He had no intention of letting me go, and his eyes looked through me, into the pool behind me, making a puzzled sound. Why are the fish moving again, still dancing? I listened to my hair standing on end, and finally I hardened a little, and I was scared into quail again. I curled up in his arms, and waited for a long time. Benson Penn's melodious laughter awaited. I knew I had been fooled. Are all my current brothers so bad? I locked the door and sulked on the bed. Benson Penn confessed to me outside, and I ignored him. I dare to tease me, I don't know, where I am without giving some color. Sister, I was wrong. Can you open the door? He spoke softly. Nor am I a unforgiving lord. When he begged me for the third time, I cleared my throat. No, it's wrong. Well, I know it's wrong. What's wrong? Whatever my sister says, it's what it is. I couldn't get angry, so I opened the door and taught him seriously with my sister's shelf. You're a straight man, so you won't be able to find a girlfriend in the future. Is it okay for that sister to be my girlfriend? Why did he suddenly confess to me? My heart was beating so fast that I was stunned and forgot to react. Benson Penn tilted his head, 1.88 meters tall in front of me, his fair and clean face, well-behaved, and clever, making people feel the urge to ravage. Is that okay? He came closer, so close that I could smell his clear scent. I couldn't breathe well and my brain was starved of oxygen. A slap in the face. Put away your filthy thoughts. My sister is the one you can't touch. I finished speaking with a straight face, not daring to look at my eyes, and turned around to close the door with a clang. Escaping from his encirclement, I leaned my back against the door, like a fish starved of water, gulping for fresh air. To be honest, I was really picked up by my brother just now. Who doesn't want a good-looking, well-behaved brother? But, just thinking of my brother's serious, old-fashioned face, I didn't want anything for a moment. To avoid seeing Benson Penn again, I didn't even go out for dinner. Boil, stay up until 12 o'clock. I couldn't hold it anymore. I decided to go out and get something in. I leaned on the door and listened for a long time, making sure there was no sound outside, before sneaking into the kitchen. Not to mention that Benson Penn is quite conscientious. Leave me a lot of food. I squatted in the kitchen eating Benson Penn's own meals. And suddenly I regretted it a little. Hey, there aren't many men who can cook these days, let alone a younger brother who can cook. No one is robbing you. Eat slowly, don't choke. I'm alone in my chagrin. Benson Penn suddenly appeared in front of me, and the cold voice almost scared me away. Why are you here? I looked up at him in horror. There is still a mouthful of rice in my mouth, and I can't swallow it, and it's embarrassing anyway. Get water. Benson Penn shook the cup in his hand. I am not thirsty in the morning and not thirsty in the evening, but I come out when I steal food. Benson Penn bent over and pulled me up from the ground. I took advantage of this time when my mind was running fast, and as soon as the front foot rejected others, the back foot ate the food cooked by others. which is not justified for no reason. Take people with short hands and eat people with soft mouths. In terms of breath, I unconsciously became a lot shorter than him. Let me explain. I swallowed, and there were a few empty plates in front of me. I didn't mean to eat. You used up all the dishes in the main kitchen. Does that sister like to eat? He interrupted me. I like it. I like it so much. It was literally done to my liking. I nodded honestly in recognition of his cooking. Then I'll make it for my sister in the future. Flim flam. I raised my eyes, trying to find even the slightest hint of reluctance in his face. However, it didn't. There was only a pair of clear, reddish eyes glowing with sincerity. There is also a little grievance. I was so wrong that I always felt that I was a bad person, and was hurting his young heart. Are you angry? I hesitated. He looked at me. No, I have the right to like it, but my sister has the right to refuse. But, he paused mysteriously. I pricked up my ears. I'm not going to give up. That's it. My heart was tickled by him. After taking a shower, I lay on the bed and picked up the video with my girlfriend. I heard that Georgia Norton is on a business trip. How about I come over and warm your bed? No. Thinking of the little milk dog brother at home, I almost blurted it out. Girlfriends. My house is messy. I'm afraid it will dirty your eyes. Afraid of my best friend's suspicion. I tried to make up for it. I haven't seen you yet. My best friend rolled her eyes and smelled something strange. Georgia Norton, are you hiding the dog at home behind my back? Me, unable to stand my best friend's repeated questioning, I disarmed and surrendered. What, brother, or a handsome guy? My best friend's eyes glowed green. I regret it. This is a proper brother control. What are you afraid of? She actually wants to see her brother's front photo. Can I agree with this? Okay, just take a look. Under her persecution, I gritted my teeth and agreed. Standing in front of my brother's room, I repeatedly confirmed that there was a light coming out of the room, and then I raised my hand and knocked on the door. The excuses are all found. The door opens. My eyes widened. Brother, he probably doesn't treat me as an outsider. Bright 8-pack abs. Is it something I can see without spending money? Sister, do you have something to do with me? Benson Penn was naked, leaning lazily against the doorframe, looking at me with those misty eyes. He had just finished taking a shower and was breathing. The tips of my ears are a little hot. Going to die. Going to die. It's a big night. This damn stunning. Can you still make people sleep well? I'll ask you. The visual impact was so strong that my tongue was knotted. Benson Penn bent down to me. His soft voice, ask me what? I'm numb. But, the younger brother is really moving. As an older sister, momentum can't be lost. Forcibly holding the restless heart, I met him with a smile on the corner of my mouth. What do you want for breakfast tomorrow? I'm not a picky eater. I eat whatever my sister eats. Woo woo, he's really good. I had an urge to get my hands on Ruahim. Fortunately, it was restrained. Smiled slightly. It's not early. You rest early. Good night. I took a step back and habitually waved my hand goodnight. The video is still being connected. The nympho face of the best friend is completely exposed in front of the younger brother. Benson Penn's expression froze for a moment, and soon calmed down. Innocently raising an eyebrow and pointing at his phone, asked, is my sister answering the video? Me. I'm not going to admit to leaving my girlfriend behind. Nothing. I denied it, and hid my phone behind my back without a trace. I accidentally pressed it. Don't worry about it. If it weren't for the mute, there would be no explanation. My brother's gaze paused on his phone for 2 seconds, and he chose to believe me. Good night, sister. I nodded, walked back, took 2 steps, and turned back. I'm in good shape. Keep it up, I commented seriously. And while he was stunned, I waited for an opportunity to touch it. Well, it feels good in the hand, too. I suppressed my excitement and hurried back to my room. The consequence of taking advantage of my brother was that I couldn't sleep all night. The next day, he appeared in the living room with huge panda eyes. Sister didn't sleep well last night. Benson Penn's eyes were full of concern, and he pushed the breakfast he had prepared in advance in front of me. I pulled the porridge in a languishing manner. Well, I dreamed all night. The white porridge had no taste, and I frowned and pushed it away with some disgust. A horrible dream. My brother's eyes were simple and sincere, and he also kindly invited me. If my sister is afraid, can you sleep with me at night? I lose sleep when I touch it. Still sleeping together, thinking about the consequences, I was horrified not to shake my head off the spot. No, no. Was it because I was too ruthless in refusing? Why is my brother so hurt? A picture of how I dripped. Doesn't my sister believe me? His aggrieved, resentful little eyes poked into my heart again and again. I can lay on the floor. Me, is it a question of where to sleep? Don't talk about the ground. You just sleep in the bathroom. I can't agree with that. I opened my mouth to meet my brother's pitiful gaze and choked, hurriedly scooped up the white porridge and took a sip, suppressing the shock. At noon, I wanted to eat hot pot and take my younger brother to the supermarket. There were a lot of people who bought fat cows, so I asked my younger brother to line up first and wander around to see the others. Standing in front of the shelf, I was reaching for the rice cake when suddenly, a hand appeared next to me and grabbed my arm. My face changed slightly, subconsciously shook it off, but did not shake it. Isn't this Georgia Norton? When I heard this sticky sound, I felt chills all over my body, but I had to smile again. What a coincidence. Manager Leonardo is also visiting the supermarket, who makes the family the father of the gold owner, and I can't bear this job anymore. I had an embarrassed smile on my face, and I tried to pull my arm out with the help of my hand. He looked left and right, and when he saw that I was alone, he became more and more intense. Yes, since we've met, why don't we have lunch together? He laughed a little lewdly. I'm sorry, I'm here with a friend. I refused outright and pulled my hand out, but he didn't want to let me go in the slightest, and came to arrest me again. I'm ready to scold my mother, and let him know that I'm not easy to mess with. A tall figure stood in front of me, giving me a sense of security. It's Benson Penn. Who are you? What do you want to do? Leonardo seemed startled and stepped back in disbelief. This thing has coveted me for a long time, and I have avoided it several times. To avoid trouble, I shrank and grabbed my brother's arm directly, looking like a bird. This is my boyfriend, Benson Penn. My face is not red, my heart is not beating. When I introduced my brother, the expression on my face was so sweet. As the words fell, they both looked at me in unison. Brother, I didn't expect it to be unilaterally announced by me. Those long eyes almost glowed when they looked at me. Hello. He put his arm around my shoulders and swore an oath of sovereignty. I leaned into his arms, and through the thin clothing, I could hear his heart beating like a drum. That's all for now. And Leonardo is still making his final struggles. Georgia Norton, you have a boyfriend. Why didn't you say that in the company? Leonardo's gloomy eyes were eager to poke a hole in me. Unbelief. I gritted my teeth and kept doing it, stood on my tiptoes, and put one arm on my brother's neck. When the kiss is over, I'm going to pull back. I felt my brother clasp on my waist, and my big palm stiffened. Then, take me forward. I looked up in confusion and accidentally crashed into his burning pupils. There's some kind of eager light there. The kiss of the younger brother is domineering and strong. I'm a rookie who can't resist it. Leonardo is gone, and he must have been swearing when he left. I breathed a sigh of relief and struggled to my feet from my brother's arms. Sister, Benson Penn hugged me and whispered in my ear, let's go home. Well, I'm still not slowing down. I haven't bought all the things yet. I won't buy it. We eat something else. I panicked. My chaotic mind went blank, and my hand was held by him all the time. When he reacted, the person was standing in the living room. When I opened my eyes again, it was bright outside. Benson Penn is nowhere to be found. A small note was left on the bedside table. I'm going to buy breakfast for my sister. The more gentle and considerate my brother was, the more I felt inhuman. My brother will definitely kill me when he comes back. Woo woo, can't be more wrong. Blocked his younger brother with his backhand. After staying up at the company until the end of work, I went to my girlfriend's house. As my best friend, she doesn't care about me, and she is full of interest in her brother. From appearance, to physical strength, to the sense of use, I yelled at her. Handsome, good, awesome. She was shocked and dislocated her jaw. You really, finished, fell into the pit. I munched on the chips, my eyes averting. Georgia Norton, Georgia Norton. I usually look like a little white, but I used to hold back my bad moves and do big things in a muffled voice. My girlfriend squeezed next to me, and the excitement left me speechless. I ignored her, and she simply took my chips away. Now, immediately explain the whole process to me, clearly. I was desperate. We don't have that. I've already deleted him. As soon as he finished speaking, the doorbell rang. My best friend called me to open the door. The door opens. My head is full of question marks. Can anyone tell me why my brother is here? Is it a hallucination? I'm about to close the door. Sister, Benson Penn reached out to block the door, cautiously taking my hand. Shall we go back together? Why, how did you find here? I'm stupid. Looked at him incredulously. Benson Penn stared at me. Hurt. Why did my sister block me? He pouted, looking hurt. Of course, it's a weak heart. I looked away in embarrassment, distracted. When her best friend heard the commotion, she rushed over and showed unprecedented enthusiasm and praise to Benson Penn. These two people were still whispering behind my back. I don't know what Benson Penn told her. My best friend mercilessly threw me out along with my backpack. Clang, the sound of the door closing. I can only help you get here. Goodbye. When I got home, I changed my shoes and went to my room with my backpack. Bow your head the whole time and don't say a word. Benson Penn grabbed me from behind. The palms of my hands were as warm as last night. Sister, don't ignore me. His fingertips even hooked my palm. My body shuddered, and I glanced away. Benson Penn showed his strength in front of me for the first time. I hid on the couch. He followed, put his hands on my shoulders, and forced me to look at him. I'm sorry about last night. He apologized to me earnestly, and his voice was soft and distressing. My eyelashes fluttered. It's not your fault. Benson Penn's face softened a little. Why is that sister avoiding me and blocking my phone? Weshit, do you know how worried I am about you? I looked up at him in a daze. There was undisguised concern for me in his pretty eyes. I need time to digest. I sighed. After all, I still can't bear it. Benson Penn watched me silently. His hands were removed from my shoulders, and just as I thought he was going to let go of me, he turned to my face and pressed his forehead against me. We were very close. The smell of breathing made me very uncomfortable. I wanted to run, but there was nowhere to run. Sister, Benson Penn seems to like to call me that very much. My heart trembled. Benson Penn had a seriousness in his gaze that I had never seen before. In the face of such a him, I was very scared. I always feel like something uncontrollable is going to happen. He said, stay with me, sister, and I'll be responsible for you, word by word, pious and precious. Although this is not the first time he has confessed to me, but my heart was still beating. He is so gentle and domineering. He is too tempting. I almost lost myself. No, I shook my head frantically, rejecting him with what little reason I had left. His eyes darkened. I guess it's very frustrating, I explained distressedly. You are my brother's student. We can't. Benson Penn was silent for a long time before he spoke. If not, will my sister like me and stay with me? No if. I pushed him away. In the middle of the night, I lay in bed tossing and turning, thinking back on the time I spent with Benson Penn. I really liked his, but he was my brother's student. If it hadn't been for that incident, my brother might have been very supportive. Right. I sighed and pulled the quilt irritably, covering my head. I woke up a little late in the morning and hurriedly tied it up, and there was no Benson Penn in the living room. The door to the guest room is open. Suddenly, I had a bad feeling. Sister, wait for me. I stared blankly at the note on the dining table, my eyes hollow, my heart empty, as if I had lost a piece. He, just gone. A few days after Benson Penn left, my brother returned. I came out of the kitchen with instant noodles. Ask him, brother, have you eaten? My brother's face is ugly. Ignore me. Went straight to the study. The sound of the door closing shook my eardrums. I would like to care about 2 sentences in the past. The door to the study was not closed, and my brother was on the phone. Vaguely, I heard words like, Benson Penn, too willful, future. Did something happen to Benson Penn? I was worried and wanted to rush in and ask for clarification, but his feet were fixed in place, and he did not have the courage to take a step. After you got in, And what kind of excuse should be used, or what kind of identity to inquire? After all, I am not who he is, and who am I to ask about him? The stupid lowered eyes and the hand that pushed the door did not fall after all. I'm stuck in a busy job, but the heart is empty and uncomfortable. I thought I wouldn't think about Benson Penn anymore. However, there are some things that don't happen because you don't want to. Half a month later, on Friday, I walked into the elevator after work and my mom's phone called. Georgia Norton, dress up nicely at night, don't be late. In the evening, my mother invited guests to dinner, so she had to take me as a companion. After a day of work, I had a headache and wanted to refuse. My mom hung up the phone and didn't give me a chance to say no at all. Navigated to the hotel. The road was congested during rush hour. I'm late, my mom grabbed me and said. It was at this time that I noticed that there was a boy my age at the dinner table. I understood in an instant. Co-authoring is a blind date bureau. The other party is the son of my mother's friend, and said that we used to play together when we were young. And I have no impression at all. I'm not in a good mood, so I occasionally echo a couple of sentences. The other party seemed to be happy with me, always trying to find ways to make me happy. Not to mention, people are quite humorous. I was actually amused by him, too. He spoke more and more energetically, and I was drinking water when I accidentally choked. He quickly got up and gave me a smooth back. It's okay, I leaned sideways, trying to avoid his touch. When I looked up at a pair of eyes outside the window. Those clean eyes. At this time, there was anger in them. It's Benson Penn. I didn't care about the gaffe, pushed away the chair and rushed out. There's nothing out there. I stood dumbfounded, sneering, not knowing what I was expecting. What's wrong? The boy who went on a blind date followed. I shook my head in disbelief and tugged at the corners of my mouth. Nothing. As I walked back, I always felt a burning gaze fall on me, and when I turned back, there was nothing. My gut tells me, the man was Benson Penn. What the hell is he doing? Why does he see me but not me? My heart was sour. I suddenly missed my brother, because of the Benson Penn thing. After that, I was absent-minded, went back early. I rented a house outside, didn't live with my brother anymore. After parking the car, the blind date's phone called. Are you home? Well, just arrived. The black figure curled up in the doorway startled me. I stepped back, and the person in front of me looked up, and I could see what the other person looked like. It's Benson Penn. He smelled of wine and his face was red, looking at me with those wet, aggrieved eyes. My heart beat uncontrollably, didn't care about what the blind date said, and hung up the phone directly. My outstretched arm retracted, and my voice trembled a little. Where have you been lately, sister? Benson Penn called me softly, then suddenly hugged me, his furry head resting on my neck. A big milk dog, who was discarded. I softened my heart, plucked up the courage to hug him back. I could feel his heartbeat. Then he hugged me harder. Why do you want to go on a blind date? He whispered a complaint, heavy breath spraying in my ear, tickling my cochlea. Before I could finish speaking, the sound of even breathing on my shoulders was heard. I was stunned. Can I fall asleep? Benson Penn had to be dragged onto the couch. As soon as he got up, his arm was grabbed, his good-looking brows furrowed tightly, and he muttered, Sister, don't leave me, okay? It's so insecure, when you fall asleep. I crouched down in distress and reached out to smooth the corners of his brow. Warm voice, sleep, I'm not leaving. Benson Penn's eyelashes twitched, and his tense body gradually flattened. I simply sat down. It was only when he was drunk that I dared to describe his delicate features so boldly. He's really handsome, sleepy, milky and well-behaved. I couldn't help but think of seeing his hurt and angry look through the window at night. I see, he's drunk because of me. The bottom of my heart suddenly became sweet. When I woke up in the morning, the first thing that came to my mind was Benson Penn. I ran out without even wearing slippers. But the room was empty. My heart was in turmoil in an instant. The quilt was neat, and the room seemed to have a residual warmth of his. I was feeling sick when I found a note in my room. Sister, I'll be able to see you soon. You have to wait for me. You must. My nose was sour. Nasty brother, what the hell are you going to do? Ran back and walked away without saying a word. I folded the note and stuffed it into my pocket. In his heart, He cursed not to pay attention to him in this life. I started going to and from work as usual. The night Benson Penn showed up was like a dream. Blind dates frequently ask me out for dinner, and I keep refusing. In the end, even my mother was shocked. I made up my mind to make it clear to the other party. Here, I hope you like it. The blind date was waiting for me downstairs with a bouquet of flowers. Around, people come and go are colleagues. When the bouquet was already pushed into my arms, a crisp voice came from afar. My sister doesn't like roses. He likes lilies. When I heard Benson Penn's voice, I was in a trance for a moment. I watched him stride until he stood still in front of me, dressed in white casual clothes, youthful and energetic. At this time, an elegant handful of flowers was held up in front of me. The smile arc at the corner of his mouth widened little by little. His eyes were clear, and I even saw my own reflection in his pupils. I'm sorry, but I like roses more now. The soreness of the past few days has left me only with grievances. I lowered my eyes quickly, not wanting him to see my tears. Aren't you going to eat? Let's go. I collected my emotions and took the rose from the blind date, who didn't understand the situation. Good. I ignored the loss in Benson Penn's eyes. The moment he left by mistake, he wanted to reach out to hold me, but I avoided him. Let me wait for him, but he won't make it clear to me. Hate to die. I walked forward with my blind date, but I quietly looked back. But the younger brother stood still, not moving. I couldn't stop crying all at once. Stupid, you're chasing after you. I walked a few intersections with my blind date, and stood on the corner of the street to make it clear, apologized to him, and politely rejected his kindness. The other party is very generous and does not dwell on too much. After parting with someone, I kept turning my head, but I couldn't see the familiar figure. Stupid brother, stinky brother. I wandered aimlessly through the streets, letting the corners of my eyes blur with tears. Brother, he's back. I was so uncomfortable that I called my girlfriend. My best friend comforted me. He has you in his heart. Maybe there is something to worry about. Can he make me miserable? I sniffed, recalling the scene when I was murdered by my brother. If Henry had 3 games and 2 shorts, I wouldn't have a sister like you. Georgia Norton, listen to me. Stay away from my students in the future. That was the first time my brother had harshly attacked me. Standing outside the ward, I was terrified. At that time, I was still in my 3rd year of college, and I often came to my brother's lab to play. My brother was very busy, and his protege, Henry, often took me to play. I only think of the other party as my brother. He later confessed to me, and I rejected him without even thinking about it. At that time, I was young, and it was too heavy to refuse the other party. But no one expected that the other party would use chemicals to commit suicide. In the end, the person was rescued, but his studies were also ruined. After that, my brother never allowed me to go to his lab, let alone have too much contact with his students. After the unexpected experience with Benson Penn that night, I was really scared. I'm afraid that my brother won't recognize me, and I'm afraid that I'll hurt my brother. I paced back to the door, only to see Benson Penn crouched in the corner. He seemed to hear a voice and stood up with clear eyes. Sister, he called me as usual. I held back the trembling in my heart, and put on a straight face. What are you doing here? Benson Penn's smile froze, and he cautiously tugged at the corner of my coat. I know my sister is coming back, so I'll wait for you here. What are you waiting for me to do? Do you greet me and then leave without saying a word? I spared him, and I went to open the door. Benson Penn swerved back, blocked the door, and took me into his arms. I nudged him hard. Get out of the way. Benson Penn hugged me tightly with one hand, and his slightly cool lips were close to my ear. Sister, I won't let go this time. With his other hand, he pulled something out of his bag, and shoved it in front of me. I've changed my mentor. My struggle stopped all at once. Lose your marbles. It's all crazy. I sat on the couch and it took me a long time to calm down. Do you know the consequences of this? I asked him seriously. In the final year of graduate school, if you don't handle a change of supervisor well, it will directly affect your graduation. Benson Penn nodded earnestly. When I opened my mouth, my whole body was numb. Nothing is more important than my sister. I have mixed tastes. On one side is moved, and on the other side is annoyed. It's more of a worry. My younger brother was very calm, and even scratched my palm naughtily. So sister, can you be with me now? I was enveloped in his gentle, fiery gaze. The whole person was about to be softened by his staring, and his eyes were too charming. I lowered my gaze and decided to confide in him. Do you know why I keep rejecting you? Benson Penn smiled faintly. Sister, do you know what I've been doing these days? I was stopped by him. What did you do? Sister, you come with me to the car. Me. I was pulled into the car by him. The younger brother's car is still lit with ambient lighting. We were huddled in the back seat of the car, his arm running through the back of my head. I panicked. What is he going to do? Does he want to? My heart was about to jump out. As a result, his hand ran through the back of my head and pulled out a laptop. I embarrassedly gathered the scrap in my head and coughed a few times. My brother gently hugged me and turned on the computer. After my sister told me the reason why I couldn't be together that day, I found a senior brother and asked about my sister. So you know, I raised my eyes. Yes, I know my sister's concerns. So I was afraid that my sister would have a conflict with Georgia Norton. So I disappeared. Sister, look at this. The younger brother gestured to the computer. He showed me the results of his projects in the past few years, and the awards of his papers. I applied for a transduction with Georgia Norton. But until then, I didn't want to be sorry for Georgia Norton. So I had to rush to the time and complete all the tasks he gave me. As I listened, tears were already falling uncontrollably. I realized that my brother has done a lot of things for me. How much does he like me? Stupid, you've been worrying about me for so long. I rubbed my brother's cheeks. He was a little thinner, but the contours were more defined and beautiful. My brother took me in his arms with his backhand, and his tone was unusually gentle. I'm worried about staying with my sister. I don't have the heart to do experiments every day. I just think about you. Phew, little villain, flamboyant. I punched him lightly, but the corners of my mouth were already sweet. I'm not lying. My brother grabbed my hand and looked at me aggrievedly. Seeing that I was not enough, I leaned forward. His face kept enlarging in front of my eyes. The thin lips were getting closer. Wait. What is my brother's attitude? I was afraid that my brother would be eaten alive, and my fingertips were pressed against his lips. When it comes to my brother's expression is right. Georgia Norton didn't say yes. He didn't say no. Hey. I blinked. As I pondered my brother's attitude, Benson Penn's handsome face pressed over. I looked up and met his dangerous eyes. He approached me. Also, who was the guy who brought you flowers just now? Are you jealous? I teased. I deliberately lengthened the tail note and aimed the corner of my eye at Benson Penn. The corners of his lips were pursed into a straight line, and his ears were erect high. I'm not telling you. I smiled pleasantly. Benson Penn realized that I had been tricked, and the corners of his mouth twitched. Sister, I'm not jealous, but I want to eat people. He actually didn't talk about martial arts and tickled me. I'm stupid. I'm in love. My girlfriend and I turned on show-off mode. My girlfriend smiled and quipped, I got it so quickly. Do you want to talk about the details? What details do you want to hear? I was smiling happily. Of course, it's the details. The girlfriend laughed cheaply. Phew, goodbye. I laughed and hung up. My brother was already waving at me across the road. Why did you come and pick me up today? Sitting in the car, I asked him with a smile. My brother leaned over and fastened my seatbelt. When he looked up, his clear eyes flashed with a small light. Pick up your girlfriend and go to dinner. It's a very simple sentence. When it comes out of his mouth, it always causes my heart to throb. I have to sigh that having a handsome and flirtatious boyfriend is really great. I obsessively held my brother's face and gave him a long kiss. Benson Penn's application for a transfer has not been approved. The younger brother has a complete solution, but we still secretly fell in love. Deliberately not to mention my brother, but my brother found out. When my brother had a serious face, I was so scared that my mind was full of the feeling of being finished. Benson Penn was much calmer than I was, and squeezed my hand. I was so frightened that I quickly shook his hand away. Take your eyes and quietly look at my brother's face. 3 months. Silent. There was a long silence. My brother called Benson Penn to his study. I rubbed my hands together and wanted to say it had nothing to do with him. Met my brother's obscure expression, and secretly swallowed his saliva. Benson Penn winked at me mischievously, timid as a mouse. I only deserved to lie on the door. I couldn't hear a word of what they were talking about. The door opened, and my brother walked out first. Brother, I didn't dare to look at him squarely. My brother stopped in front of me. Inexplicably, he said, "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" I froze in confusion. "So, what exactly does he mean? You say, did my brother agree to us being together?" I asked after Benson Penn. My brother looked down at me and smiled. "Georgia Norton doesn't agree. Can I still stand here? It seems to make a lot of sense. But my brother is so good at talking." "What the hell did you talk about?" I hooked Benson Penn around the neck. For their content, there is a lot of curiosity. I hung on him and eavesdropped. "Want to know?" He put his arms around my waist. Mysteriously, it tickles my heart even more. HMM. Can't you see my gossip ears pricked up? Benson Penn carried me to the living room. "It's not that I can't say it, but it's still selling. I really want to beat him. Do you say it or not?" I stretched out my claws to his fleshy face. What is this man's expression? "Enjoying." "Sister, let's find a time to come home with me to meet my parents." His voice was clear and solemn. I withdrew my hand from his face, shocked. "Is it too early?" Benson Penn looked me seriously in the eye, and said something that made my head go black. "Don't you want to be responsible for me? Am I going to dress too modest? Where's the hair? Is it good to tie up? Or do you look good in it?" "No, I'm so nervous." When I got downstairs to Benson Penn's house, I didn't want to get out of the car. Benson Penn pulled me out of the car, almost half coaxing, half hugging. "Don't be nervous. My parents are fine." "Really?" I'm skeptical. "Really." Benson Penn reassured me again and again, and he said, "It's not the first time we've seen you." Me. "When is it, and are you still kidding?" After Benson Penn's relief, I didn't seem so nervous. Benson Penn was holding me in one hand and the other in the present I was going to give to his parents later. In fact, he prepared it for me in advance. It was Benson Penn's mom who came to open the door, a very young, very elegant woman. "Hello Auntie, Uncle, good." The moment I saw his dad, my head was buzzing. "Isn't that the doctor at the hospital?" What did Benson Penn just call him? "Father." He's Benson Penn's dad. So at the time, did I break someone's son? Or did my father come out of the clinic? "Hey, why is the ceiling spinning a little? Your name is Georgia Norton, isn't it?" Mrs. Penn poured me a cup of tea and asked me with a smile. I took it with both hands, not daring to look at them. "Yes, Auntie, you can call me Georgia." "Okay." Mrs. Penn nodded in satisfaction, and complimented me in passing. "What a beautiful little girl." Before I could speak, Benson Penn took me by the shoulders, and carried him into his arms. "Can your son's vision be bad?" I was so embarrassed, especially in front of his parents. "Yes, yes," Mrs. Penn echoed with a smile. Mr. Penn pretended to drink tea to hide the upturned corners of his mouth, while his parents went to the kitchen. I was dragged by Benson Penn to his bedroom. "Close the door." I want to bite fiercely. "Brother, why didn't you say that the doctor was your father earlier?" The younger brother raised his hand in surrender. "At that time, my sister didn't admit that it was my girlfriend." "Why didn't you tell me before you came?" I continued to ask fiercely. "I forgot." The younger brother blinked and smiled. "You did it on purpose." I've pounced, little fist swinging down, was caught by his younger brother, and fished into bed with his backhand. Shay, is it a matter of shyness? This is simply social death. I skimmed my hot face with some concern. "You say, would your dad be dissatisfied with me? I met my parents on that occasion. What do people think?" Benson Penn smiled and hooked my chin affectionately. "As long as I like it, you have enough confidence in this home. What's more, my sister is so good. Who has a reason not to like it?" "But, nothing." After my brother finished speaking, he took something out of the bedside with his backhand, and put it on my hand. I picked it up, and looked at it, and it turned out to be a household registration book. "Sister, my dad gave it to me." I stared blankly at the household registration book, at a loss, but I was hugged tightly by my brother in my arms, and I was gentle in my ear. "Sister, when are we going to your house?" The end.